Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka back with another Twitter thread. As you can see, we are live right now on the subathon. We've got just about an hour left, so it's possible by the end of this segment, it'll be over. One of Yu-Gi-Oh's selling points is its varied deck types, but sometimes you sit across the table from someone on the exact same deck that you are playing. Frequently, these decks take advantage of gaps in the metagame, so when you sit across the table from someone on a similar strategy, it ends up in a game that is not particularly interesting. I'm asking you for the worst mirror matches of all time, and I'm beginning with Dark World. Dark World was an incredibly playable deck for a long time, and unfortunately, if you ever sat down across from another Dark World player, it sucked ass. That's because a significant amount of good Dark World cards, especially in the past, were things like Dark World Dealings, which let both players discard a card and draw a card. Except, because Dark World Dealings is your effect, an opponent on Dark World would get the bonus effects of Dark Worlds, meaning that a lot of Dark World games boiled down to staring at your opponent and begging them to make the first move so the pair of you could start playing. Let's see what you've come up with in the comments. Doug says, I've fortunately dodged it all these years, but I have to imagine the FA mirror is a nightmare in physical play. Unfortunately for Doug, I have not dodged it. FA was one of the most playable things in progression playoffs when the FAs were released, which meant that we had to do it. Now, keep in mind that Dueling Book allows you to put counters on your cards to keep track of their levels, but in paper play, you can't. The FAs don't say put counters on this card, they say the level changes. Dyer says 95 turn LCS Paleo mirrors. If we make it to Friday, I'm co-commentating one of these. Coder has a great one. The Plunder mirror is actually really interesting, provided neither player plays Emblem. If one player plays it, they are so heavily favored in the mirror because you can equip it to any Plunder, meaning you yoink your opponent's monster to make your own. I'll push back on this a little bit. The Plunder mirror is not particularly interesting absent Emblem, because you only ever commit water monsters to the board. Sure, you could on your own terms synchro off for something like a Bran, but that enables your opponent to use their cards to go into a fire, so why would you? In my experience, it's just Blackbeards looking at each other. Nathan says, Psyframe Mirror is all about who drew more Gamma. I came back to the game after a while of not playing just for one regional in 2018. Did poorly, but I ended up facing the only other Psyframe player there. You literally just stare at each other. You stare at each other, and then when you have like 3 Gammas in hand, you're like, all right, I guess I'll commit. It's not even you can like tribute summon Driver and start attacking, because they have Psyframes to stop you from attacking, and you can't set the fucking Psyframes to tribute. Intercrescent says Numerons. Intercrescent is a Numeron 1 trick, by the way. They topped a regional with this like last week. The fact that you can't OTK without your opponent controlling a monster just means you are both passing until the other player gets impatient and summons Megaclops. Then they lose because they can just kaiju over it and win. There's really nothing else you can do. Goki. Oh my god, wait, hold up. We have an actual deck. Alert, alert, actual playable deck alert. First to lock out your opponent wins. There's a reason a fair amount of people quit during this time. Absolutely correct. The Goki mirror during that Nationals format was miserable. The deck did not play a ton of non-engine because it didn't have to, and as a result, it just like, really the mirror was legitimately die roll .turbo. I've only experienced it once, but the Valence mirror is one of the most nightmarishly complex games I've ever experienced. Both decks are playing 5D chess to manipulate card placements and columns, and both can take full advantage of the field spells and move effects. I am not interested in playing 4D Valent gameplay. Absolutely love this deck, but oh my god, is the mirror match a slog. I've had 2 Melfi mirror matches in my life. They took years off my life each time. Another Prague playoff banger. I think we probably should have just banned the Melfis because the games they produced were so greasy. I remember playing Cloudians with someone on YGO Pro. It was a mirror. We both got 5 monsters out and didn't have extra deck. We both had 2 to 3 Squall out. We just sat there doing nothing for multiple turns until I drew Updraft and did 17,000. Updraft is reciprocal. Midnight Dreams said, lots of Pepe matches decided by whoever resolved the Wavering Eye's 4th effect. The Pepe mirror, in my opinion, is not as bad as people pretend it is. There is actually a significant amount of decision-making that does impact the outcome of the games, and the deck has so much extension, it can usually play through most boards, but Wavering Eyes specifically is such an unbelievable, unfun card. Old Tunes could not direct attack if the opponent controls a tune, and force you to attack that monster. God, I really did not know that. I'm learning much today, and I hate all of it. It's like American history class all over again. One of the worst parts of the 2013 Spellbook mirror, says Half-Miss, was Judgment itself. The card counts both players' spells. So in the mirror, it not only made you go plus a billion, it was also maxi. Made for really frustrating gameplay. Oh no. I was like, Well, Spellbook of Judgment being a quick play doesn't impact much, does it? Crimson Phoenix says when you're immune to your own traps, it just means the mirrors drag and turn into Xyz's beatdown. Thank God for access code talker. The last time I'll say that sentence. Duel Links answer. During the 2018 meta, Alien was one of 2 best decks in this format. You might think that this person is trolling. They are not. It was Aliens with exactly this piece of modern support A-cell recombination device. Being a strategy that relies on reducing face-up monsters' attack with A counters, 300 per counter per monster onto either field, the best strategy was setting everything so they can't put counters on it, and then going to deck out. Easily Runic, especially if neither player is playing a hybrid barrier with Furhire or something. Runic relies on your opponent to play the game, so if both players sit on Fountain and pass, it's going to be a long day. Fun fact about this one, it's actually not a mirror problem, it's any duelist problem. The Runic stun variant can be slowed down by just refusing to play the game until you have enough stuff that your opponent is forced to negate every single thing, and since all the Runic spells are hard once per turn, maybe it works. The Magispector mirror is rough. Neither player can target the other monsters with card effects, so all the removal spells do fuck all, except for Magispector Tempest, which, for all intents and purposes, just wins you the game. It's a race to see who gets to it. Sounds really enjoyable. We have found a flu answer. I've never been more bored and frustrated than watching a flu mirror. It feels like the tier mirror if everything ended on a floodgate that is entirely irrelevant to the matchup. Okay, so that is actually a pretty funny description of it, but I think the flu mirror is actually not terribly unfun. The flu Wanderees in the banish zone trigger when any winged beast is normal summoned, meaning that you can use them to chain block your opponent, chain blocking your chain blocking, so they get pretty ridiculous pretty early. Hero mirrors are fun, but when both players are running Super Poly at 3 and a couple of targets, it becomes a duel of take a shot whenever somebody uses Super Poly. Yeah, the fact that Super Poly is already okay in Hero because they have all the different attribute heroes means that this does happen pretty frequently when you sit across the table from another hero player, and it's never a good time. Ninjas! Oh, I'm not familiar with this one. One of the worst mirror matches I've ever played, stemming almost completely from the fact that Ninjutsu Art of Dancing Leaves can target either player's face-down monsters or ninja monsters. Oh... Chat says it gets worse. Kagero can trigger off your opponent targeting their own ninjas. Stop printing cards like this! Early Gladiator Beast mirrors were tricky because so many battle phase tricks worked for both players, like Waboku, yeah. So you'd be playing around enemy tag-ins while waiting for Test Tiger. One of the most frustrating things you could experience, and I'm so glad that we got battle traps that actually do something instead of, like, Waboku. Cyber Dragon is probably objectively the worst. You either don't make a board so it doesn't get contact fused and get OTK'd, or you do make a board and you get OTK because it got contact fused. Whoever got to go second game 1 literally won the entire match. Yeah, the existence of Mega Fleet and the existence of Fortress Dragon really complicate this one. The stars aligned perfectly to make me play a Malefic mirror once. Pray that you're the one to get to summon a Malefic because the restriction hits both players once a Malefic is on the field. You know, there are times when I'm not actually sure if Konami realizes that 2 people are allowed to play the same deck against each other. Thankfully, for every one of these terrible mirrors, we have a really, really good one. And it's mostly the same good one over and over again. It's Tierlament, folks. See you next week. Great format, fun deck. I'm sorry, whose fucking turn was it again? This was a great format. This is a fun deck.